Hi, my name is Yasmeen Turayhi, and this is Gateways to Awakening, where we host one-on-one conversations with leading experts in wellness, well-being, and spirituality. Today's show is with Marla Mervis-Hartmann. She's the best-selling author of Befriend Yourself, Finding Freedom with Food and Peace with Your Body. She's a coach, a Reiki Master, and a TEDx speaker dedicated to guiding people towards deep love and peace with their bodies, food, and lives. And I recently read her book and also checked out a lot of her content online and just was so overcome with how much wisdom was in her advice about body image and how to really have a different relationship with your body. So I am so excited to welcome Marla to the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Your podcast is, I usually listen to podcasts while I'm cleaning or while I'm driving. And, sometimes I'll have them on like 1.5 speed. And with yours, I've literally had to pull over and be like, whoa, wait, let me take this message in. And I think that's such an important thing that there's so much information that we are given, but to really slow down to allow some of these golden nuggets to like into our being and into our body. So I just want to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you so much, Marla. That means a lot to me. And I'm always so attracted to guests who are speaking from the heart. And I think just reading your work, it was so obvious in reading your books, especially just the case studies, the stories that you tell. It just feels like this body of knowledge just comes from your heart and you really care about helping people. So I'm just again so excited to welcome you to the show. And I want to talk about the topic of body image, and self-love. I feel like these topics are ones that a lot of people either, isolate themselves from this conversation of body image, or it's sort of in the background. But let's bring it to the forefront. Why is the topic of body image and self-love such an important topic to talk about today?
It's so important because it's gotten skewed, right? It's gotten skewed as like, if my body is a certain way, then I will have self love. So the body image, this positive body image, has gotten in the way of loving ourselves. So when we talk about body image, we talk about body love. Really, what we're talking about is a deep respect for ourselves, a deep
Hmm.
respect, a deep honoring, a deep understanding of this body. And then how that body shows up, what it is seen for is what it is. So what has happened is we have allowed this negative body image to get in the way of self love. But then what else has happened is that we have been searching and searching for my body to
Hmm.
be amazing. And then we've left the love behind. So, really, what we're looking here and the really around this conversation is evening it out, coming to even body neutrality, where we can, so what, we love so what, we're in the best body that we have, or the thinnest we've ever had been. Then what? Right? Like, then
Mm.
what? So it's really about this nourishing experience of loving self that allows us to show up in the body we want to be in.
Hmm. So let's actually double click on this topic. You talk about this relationship with the body, you being a friend to your body, a friend to self. And I think, one thing that I picked up from the book was the way that we talk to our bodies, the way that we talk to our bodies is so different than the way we would talk to any friend in our life. And so I'd love for you to tell us, like, what does that mean to you? Why is our relationship that we have with our body so critical?
So when I looked at my healing process and I looked at how I healed my relationship with my body and my relationship to food, which was very, very dysfunctional, I realized that the theme, the through line was becoming my own best friend, learning how to be the friend that I am to others. I'm a really good friend, and I have so many great friends in my life. So I've been modeled what friendship means, and then I realized, wow, I don't know how to do that for myself. I don't actually know how to listen. I don't actually know how to tune in to what is really going on underneath what I would call the overlay of shame and anger and upset and disgust about my body and ew, the shame around what I ate. And underneath that is the opportunity to tune into what is really going on. Because often the food, the body image stuff, the negative body image stuff is just a symptom for what is that deeper layer. So as we become a friend to ourselves, as we have this deeper relationship with our bodies, our body hosts our soul. So we're actually tuning into that rather than just what we look like in the mirror. And oh gosh, when we're in tune with that, we are showing up in our fullest. We are our actually authentic self. So it's been such an important journey for me to really slow down the process and to get into the understanding of like, what does my body need right now? And what does my
Hmm.
body need? Now that's not always easy.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, can you walk us through like what are the questions that you maybe ask yourself, or what's the advice that you'd give to someone who doesn't have a strong relationship with their body? Like how would they start?
So I'll tell you my a little bit about my journey. So I was really shut off from myself. I was very active. I've always been someone who's been in my body. I love to exercise. I actually was an exercise bulimic for a while, which means if I ate food, I would then exercise it off. Right. So I was constantly in this fight with my body, constantly measuring how many calories were coming in and how many calories were coming out. So I did not want to know what my body needed because if I was afraid that if I listened, my body was going to say, eat that food. You're hungry, eat. No, 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 I'm not supposed to eat until this time of the day. Right. So,
Mm.
or, slow down, go take a nap. No, I am supposed to go for a run right now. Or, stop eating. No, I don't want to stop eating. So, really, the process is allowing the body to speak, being aware that the body does have a voice. And we know our body can get really loud. If we don't listen to our body, it will get loud and it will win. If you're pushing yourself over and over and over for a really long time, your body is going to burn out. It will win. If you're not feeding yourself, if you are restricting, the body will find a way to get that food in. And then and sometimes that looks like a binge, right? Which then activates the negative body image, right? But
Hmm.
it's actually because we didn't listen to the body to begin with, which said, slow down, feed me. Oh, not that food, maybe this food today. Oh, that's too much. Oh, I need a little bit more. And so it's really about any other relationship. When we're wanting to cultivate a relationship, Yasmeen, if you and I became friends, what would we do? We'd be like, "Tell me about yourself." Oh, and then I listen and I'm like, "Oh, she loves flowers. Oh, let me bring her some flowers next time I see her." Right? Oh, she doesn't really like that. I tune into your body language and your body language is showing me, oh, you're feeling a little cramped up. And then I lean in, right? So that's the same thing that we do with ourselves. Oh, I'm feeling tight. What does that mean? How can I support myself? What can I do here? So we don't really want to overthink this because we do know how to do it. We just have to be willing to slow down to listen. We just have to be willing to say, I love myself enough. Even if you don't have to love yourself like, it sometimes in a day, it can be just a little bit. I'm just going to respect myself enough today to listen to this piece. And then
Hmm.
that builds on itself and builds on itself. And then all of a sudden, wow, I'm pretty tuned in.
Hmm. That's beautiful. And so, can you give us an example of maybe someone you work with, or we can even maybe do an example together that what that tuning in process looks like? I think for some people, listening to their body or even having any connection with the body might seem so foreign, like they wouldn't even know where to start. So, I love that you brought in
Mhm.
that example of like, oh, there's tightness. I just sort of asked myself that question now as you were talking. I was like, well, what is it that my body would need right now? And it was like, oh, water, you know, something I just didn't
Yeah.
expect. But yeah, I'm curious if you could give us an example of someone you've worked with, or we could even, do one together.
Let's do it right now. So I
Okay.
invite everyone right now to just take a moment. Maybe you want to close your eyes, or if you're driving, just allow yourself to feel your body. What I love to do is I love to drop into my back body. So literally wherever you are, like kind of push again into your chair, or maybe if you're lying down, feel your whole back. And what that does is we are always in this forward motion, right? We're always going, doing. It's always like moving forward. So inviting us all to kind of drop back into our back body, feeling where your back is touching whatever it is, where your butt is touching whatever it is. And now find that breath. What's happening in your breath? And even that is a journey, right? The journey of, is my breath choppy? Is my breath deep? Is it slow? Where is my breath? Is it up in my throat? This is tuning in. Right now, you are tuning in. You are listening. You may not like what you're feeling. That's different. We're not trying to change anything. We don't try to change our friends. We meet them where they are. And now that question is, what does my body need right now? And for me, it's a deeper breath. What is it for you? Maybe it's touch. Maybe you want to touch your face. Maybe you want to give yourself a hug. Maybe you want to cry. Maybe there's a cry in there. Don't judge that. Allow that to come out. Like we want to be the space that allows for what is. So that is a very simple practice of just bringing our attention into our body, finding our breath, and then asking the question, what do I need right now? What do I want?
Hmm. That's beautiful. And I think a lot of people are not taking the time to pause, especially right before we eat anything or sit down to eat, and asking even the question, like, am I even hungry? I think it's so funny. I've, spent a lot of time in different cities. I have a lot of circles of girlfriends from all different cultures, backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds. And I feel like the common theme is it doesn't matter how beautiful someone is or how someone looks or what their body shape is. I feel like there's so much self-judgment in the world right now. I was sort of like startled once. I was hanging out with a model and, she made a comment about how she didn't like the way her arms looked in this picture. And I was like, wow, okay. Like, even someone who, is considered in culture to be exceptionally beautiful is still struggling with their body image. So I'm curious, in your work, have you noticed this to be sort of like almost a pandemic, and it's the problem is really rampant in our culture today? And I'm curious, like, why so many people struggle with body image.
Well, this is the thing with negative body image, it is not prejudice on what kind of body it's in.
Mm.
So it can be in a body that is very full figured, negative body image can show up, or it can be in, like you said, the model, the ideal of what we are all struggling or desiring. It still shows up there because it isn't about that. There's a deep level of self worth that we're really tuning into here. And with negative body image, there is it's just so easy to go to that, right? We can just look at ourselves and we just like, "Ew, I'm not enough. I'm not enough. I'm not enough." But where is that not enough feeling actually coming from, right? It comes from a deeper place. And it can come from, and we can blame it on our body. We can blame it on the food that we're looking at. But what I've seen, Yasmeen, over and over and over again, and this is true within my own journey, is that this place of not loving self or low self-worth is a deeper process. This is emotional and spiritual job here. This is a not a fix the food and fix the body so that now I'm going to love myself. You know, if you're listening to this, you know how many times you said, I've lost that weight. How about another 5 pounds? Or what about the next 5 pounds? Or, oh, now it's my wrinkles. You know, it is a continual experience because the mind just wants to keep doing that. So we really need to go in one way, just be like, enough is enough. No, I'm not taking that thought and I'm not running with it. That's a thought that shows up and I'm going to let that be. And then what is there? What is that deeper thing that we're really needing? And in my experience, that is love, Yasmeen. And I don't mean just like the ooey wooey love. I'm talking about unconditional love that heals everything. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're needing. And that's what we're wanting to find and access. So
Mm.
to bring that in a little bit more, what that is like, so we all have wounding. We often have wounding. We have, trauma from our younger years. And there are places in our lives where we're not given what we actually needed. And it's not sometimes it is from abuse, and then sometimes it is just because that's what we're here to learn. We all have this curriculum, right? And so the places that I would say in myself that I didn't get what I needed, I now get the opportunity to figure out what that is and now become my own best friend and give that to myself or reparent that. And
Mm.
so if I keep telling myself that I'm wrong, if I keep telling myself that I'm not good enough, chances are I'm just continuing the experience that I had from the beginning.
Mm.
And so for me, negative body image stuff I'm in this world, right? I'm in diet culture. I'm, a woman in a body, right? And so I will have these moments where a strong urge to be like, ew, right, will come and kind of take me over. And I'll be like, okay, no, no, no. What's really going on here? For me, that is a sign. It's a red flag that I'm not tending to myself in the way that I needed to be tended to. All of a sudden I'm overeating. Just last week, I noticed I had lunch and then I ate a whole bunch more. I'm like, that's odd. And then there was a pause for me because I know that food and negative body image has been my coping mechanism. So now I know, oh, there's something going on here. And then I was able to tap in and like, oh, I have some fear. There's some fear here. Let me attend to that.
Hmm. So, okay, so this is really powerful, I think, for people listening in, dealing with like the underlying layer of what's happening rather than the external piece, which is like going for more food or, I'm curious if you could give us an example of maybe someone you've worked with or even there's so many stories in your book about people who, it seems like we're having these normal interactions with family and friends, but there's all these intersubjective inner conversations, like a second narrator judging one's actions. So I'm curious if you could give us an example, a story of sorts about someone who shifted.
Oh, I'm just, I'm seeing it all around me. I'm seeing in my practice right now, often there's themes that come. And with the theme I'm noticing right now in my practice is that the food and the deep desire for the food, the longing, the hunger, once we've unwound some of this food stuff, has been this deep yearning for mother,
Hmm.
deep yearning for the mother love. And for some of us, we didn't get that love from our own mother. And so it is what I'm noticing with thinking of a client right now is really her understanding that food is not going to fill that, and her body looking a certain way isn't going to meet that need that she didn't get. But now she gets to fill that need. And what that looks like in many, many, many different ways is sometimes calling in the mother, right?
Mm.
Calling in Mother Mary, calling in Kuan Yin, lying on the earth with Mother Earth, right? And what it looks like Yasmeen, is my client lying in her bed and rocking herself
Hmm.
and loving herself and saying, I'm here. I feel you. I got you. I'm right here. I know you're afraid. I know there's hunger here. I know there's longing, but it's that deep love.
Hmm.
And you know what? That's not always easy for someone to do, which is why I'm here to really help people to meet these places that are sometimes like not easy to access on our own. And that's also why it is so much easier just to say, I feel a little uncomfortable in my body. I'm going to go try this new diet, right?
Hmm.
And just go to the next thing because it's the easiest thing that we can do rather than slow down and see what I'm really in need, what's really there.
Hmm. So actually double clicking on this is so interesting. The mother wound, and I'm also curious, does the father wound play into this? And what is I guess, the range of typical experiences that people have in childhood for them to form extreme, negative body images? I'm kind of curious, like, what is played out. And for those who are mothers, for those who are fathers, for those who have children, how does one deal with the conversation on body image with especially women?
Yeah. Okay. So lots to share here with this question. There's so many different parts. So just want to make sure I get to the parent section of this. Very important. But let's talk about people that I see in my practice, myself included. And what I see is kind of the theme. I work at an eating disorder recovery center here in Maui, so I get to see a lot of different stories. And yes, there can be some very intense trauma. What I see for a lot of people, there is sexual trauma, and there is sexual. And what I want to say about that is often what kind of surprises me is that people don't realize that sexual trauma can just be unwanted looks, being looked at in certain ways. It feels like a violation, feels uncomfortable, right? During puberty. And that was my story. I was one of those really young, curvy little girls. And so I got a lot of positive attention on my body. People would comment about my body, tell me I was sexy, and I was little and I'm like, what the heck? I'm just playing with my dolls here and like, you know what I mean? And I'm getting this feedback on what I look like. And so I got to understand that my body meant something and that my body needed to be a certain way in order for me to get approval. So for me, that's a wounding, right? I do not come from a lot of trauma in my life. I do not come from big T trauma, but I do have small t and I do have wounding, like we all do. And so, and I come from a family that was not heavy into dieting, but I somehow got this, idea from society. So when we're looking at some of these reasons why we gravitate towards coping with food or body, some of that is control. So when we can't control our environment, then we will control our food and we will control our body. So if we're in an environment at home where there's a lot of control, or if someone wants you to do something, or they're not attending to your needs, and I see this with clients, it's like the only way I could get my attention is their attention is by them noticing that I was acting out with food. Or the only way I could control things was by restricting. Or, oh my gosh, like I'm remembering a client that we realized the moment her binge eating started. And it was in her having dinner with her family, and it was all of a sudden fighting. And then she was just started binging, and she hadn't stopped that until we started working together. So we really want to look at how some of these behaviors with food and body image, they get intertwined and they get all wrapped up. And it's one of my specialties and expertise in this is that I can see the patterning, and then I can also understand the body image and the food stuff and how they intertwine and then work with them together. Because we can sometimes work on our wounding and we can work and we go to therapy and then we come over here and we work on the food and the body image. But because they're so connected and because we're using food in our body as a way to cope with life, literally, it is how we can deal with stress. It's how I dealt with stress, right? How I dealt with any emotion was to eat over it or to control. It's so important to see where they intersect and then begin to pull them apart and notice, wow, by looking at this in a different way, I don't have to act out on it. I don't have to shame my body and be mean to myself, that there's something actually going on that really needs my attention.
You talk a lot about gratitude as a way to really connect with yourself and to embrace self-love. Can you talk about the practice of gratitude?
So it's really important to use gratitude as a practice. Now, we don't want to just throw gratitude on ourselves. But we also do want to throw gratitude on ourselves, right? Like when I think about affirmations, right? Sometimes we can just say them and just, we don't mean them at all. But often when we continue to say these affirmations, they start to get in there. They start to allow us to open up something. So if we're really in the negative body image, if I've been really in it and I'm swirling in it, I'm like, I am finding some gratitude. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to find some gratitude about my body right now. I'm going to be grateful for this moment. No, and then the body starts, but this and that. It's like, no, we are going to slow down and take this moment because if we let that voice, that ego voice that just wants to keep us, lots of times these voices want to keep us safe, right? They want to keep us safe, so they think they're doing something good for us, but actually they're making us feel worse and worse. We have to balance that out with gratitude. And the reason in gratitude is so important is that it actually does work. It's not just some, oh, nice feeling thing. Gratitude works, becoming your own best friend works. It's not just a nice idea. Gratitude has a full-on body sensation. When we are in the emotion of gratitude, the heart opens, and then we don't have to do really anything. The heart is open. That is what we're doing. And now from that place of gratitude, we're actually seeing life a little bit differently. And so, what I notice with my clients and, some of them have to work with me for, 6 months to a year. Some of them are, usually when I work with people, it's for an extended amount of time because there's a lot to unwind. There's a lot to be with. And sometimes we go in deep and then we have to back up. We have to back up and allow that to have space. And sometimes we're working on the food stuff and we're looking at, okay, we're going to, I was just working with a client and she was going to see family. So we were working almost every day back and forth on email, like, okay, I'm going with this family member now. This is what usually comes up. I'm concerned about what they're going to say about my body. Right. So there is how to be in the world and working that element. Then there's that deeper element, and there's how to be with our food. So this process, um, you know, honestly, I feel like I'm still in my process of healing because I have this body. And so we all have this opportunity to learn how to love ourselves more and to learn how to care for ourselves in a deeper, deeper way. That never ends. And that's really good news.
Yeah, and I was going to actually ask about the journey, like how long it takes. And so, it makes sense that we're always sort of like in this journey, right? Like we're always eating. We have to be confronted with that every single day. But I'm curious, like, a particular turning point for you in terms of healing? And is there like any kind of timing that or breakthrough that you notice when a client is getting really close to breaking through a new paradigm shift? Like what comes up?
I can remember a moment where I found the answer. So I was sitting in my little apartment in New York City, and I was in it. I was in it. I probably binged or whatever, and I was so uncomfortable. And I tuned in to spirit, and I said, "What do I do? What do I do?" And I heard this voice: "Give me your body. Give me your weight. Give me your food." And I couldn't do it, Yasmeen. I could not do it, and I said, "No." I just remember being like, "I do not trust that I can do that." Because for me, there was so much fear. I thought that if I turned my weight and my food and my body over to what I call God, that I was gonna be struck fat. And fat, in parentheses, for me meant that I wasn't gonna be loved. So the process for me, and the reason I'm sharing this with you is a process for me took a while because I had to learn how to trust. I learned how to trust in this moment, then take my control back, trust a little bit more, take my control back. And so it was really the healing process is more of a cyclical experience. It's not like you turn the light on and off from binge eating. It's not like you turn the negative body image on and off. What I've noticed with this is that I will have longer chunks of time, and I'm on a really long chunk of time now, right? I'm like, wow, the amount of freedom that I have, right? And then it shows up as a little whisper rather than like this hammer on top of my head. So the reason why this is so important to talk about this and this question is so important is that if you're on this path of healing around your relationship with negative body image or your relationship with binge eating or emotional eating or restricting or whatever, that when the behavior comes up, you don't say to yourself, "Look, I'm a failure. I'm doing it again. There's something wrong with me. I thought I healed this and it's gone." No, this is a part of the journey to unwind the cycle. Oh, it's here again. What can I learn from it now? Oh, what is this here to teach me? And so having someone to support you in navigating that can really allow for you to move through that. No, there weren't a lot of me's then, right? There weren't a lot of people when I was healing. There weren't a lot of people that were working on the body image and the disordered eating and all of that the way that I do. And so I think my journey actually took me a lot longer than it would actually need to. But I do think that the process, I mean, it's just such a beautiful process of unwinding and getting to know yourself and learning that even in these moments where you're not doing it right and you think that you're supposed to be healed, like the amount of compassion that is available. Like, oh my gosh, like, when I've been in this place or been with a client and I'm like, oh, oh, it's here again. Can I really be compassionate for myself? Like, oh, rather than making myself wrong. And that allows the brain, the mind to go into curiosity. Ooh, what's going on here? How can we get out of this? How can we love ourselves out of this? How can we do this differently? Rather than, here we go again. May as well just, eat a whole pie, right?
Hmm. Beautiful. So, okay, I want to go back to an earlier point. Is when you're a parent and you have a daughter, for example. Right now, I'm like
Mhm.
the stats on younger women is like, and from a mental health perspective, is super sad. I'm curious, like, what advice would you give parents, sisters, brothers, friends who have younger women in their life? How would you work with them on the conversation around body image?
So the most important thing that we can do to support our children is to clean up our own relationship with our body. How are you, so it's speaking to the parent here or the auntie or, the uncle, how are you talking about your body? How are you talking about food? Are you saying things like, "Oh, I shouldn't eat that. Oh, I'm so bad. Oh, you're gonna eat that? Oh, I didn't know you ate that sort of food." Are you commenting on your own body? Are you commenting on other people's bodies? That is so important. And this is the thing, Yasmin, we live in diet culture, and there's so much diet culture talk that people don't even know. They don't even get what they're saying and how they're saying it and how it contributes to this negative body image. So it's important to, if you are a parent and you are looking in the mirror and you have that moment where your daughter's sitting beside you and you go, ugh, when you look at yourself, no, no, you know what? You do not get to do that anymore. And you know what? It's so powerful to leverage your own healing. As a parent, we have this opportunity to be like, I do not want to pass this on, or I want to heal because I do not want this to be passed on to my children. And so that love of child can really get us and be like, I'm done with this behavior. I want to look at this on a deeper level and I want to heal. So allow that to be. Allow yourself to heal. Allow yourself to learn how to love yourself more, because what I have witnessed is so many people, so many adults coming to me and saying, I was never really taught how to love myself. I was taught how to put everyone else first. And so there's such an education on even learning what that even means. So to answer your question is, one, clean up your own relationship to your body and your own relationship to food. And, this depends on the age, but really being aware of how much your children are on social media and what they're ingesting on social media, because that is feeding us. That feeds us. And so if there's a lot of, I mean, I don't even know what I would do if I had social media back in the day. I would have been so much worse off. And so it's a big deal. It really is a big deal. What is in your feed? Is your feed like a bunch of fitness and people telling you what to eat and how to eat it? I mean, that is so robbing us of our own power. Circling back to how to listen to ourselves is like, stop listening to people on Instagram tell you what to eat. Tune into what we want to eat. So it's empowering our children and really empowering them, being like, that what you see right here is not a real body. That is totally photoshopped. That's not even real.
Yeah, 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 I mean, social media has made the game, I think, a lot, a lot more difficult for so many more people, and I'm frankly grateful that I did not grow up with smartphones, and just I was like the Oregon
Ugh.
Oregon Trail generation. So I want to going back to this conversation around the mother wound, father wound. Have you seen the father wound also play into early childhood, or is it primarily the mother wound?
I would say definitely the father wound too. Speaking from my own experience, my father was always around, but he wasn't really there. Right. So grew up two other sisters. My mom was a matriarch. It was so much estrogen. And so my dad really pulled back. I mean, bless his heart, right? But he really wasn't there emotionally. And so there's a void that happens when the masculine isn't there, right? And this so this is just one small story around the father, right? But when we don't have that masculine energy, and the masculine, I mean, we could unwind, we can unpack that a lot, but there's something that happens that allows us to ground and to feel safe. And this is what I've learned within myself, is like that amount of safety to be in my body, that pole of masculine. And so what I have noticed is that I've been just like searching my life, trying to go into over masculine, just go and do because there was this feeling of not feeling safe enough to relax back into my feminine and be safe in my body. So that's what I've noticed has shown up for myself. And then in other clients, that can be um that's where sometimes sexual violation shows up. It also can be even smothering of the masculine. So the opposite of what I had, but almost the smothering of the masculine, right? And not being able to feel and sense themselves, almost that pushing away. And so sometimes that's where extra weight will show up as the pushing away of the masculine force. It's like, I need more space, get away. Right? So it can look like that as well.
Can you say more about that? That's super interesting. I haven't heard that before, the pushing away piece.
So, what I have noticed is that a lot of people will say they want to lose weight. They say they want to be in a smaller body, and they'll do whatever they can to make that happen. And then the weight comes back on, which often happens when we diet anyway. But when we don't really address what the weight gives that person. So I'm thinking about a client who she's like, I say I want to lose the weight. And we finally got to the point. She's like, but I feel really afraid without this weight on me. I get attention. I don't know what to do with it. I say I want relationship, but I don't really want relationship. It's too vulnerable. It's too much. So then more weight comes on, which is actually protection, which actually is like, now I have an excuse to not be out in the world. Now I don't have the excuse to have attention on me because I have this extra weight. And now what happens to the body? We go into shame, right? And we make it about the weight. But really it's the weight is actually serving because the weight is creating this protective field around the person, the woman, say in this case. So what needs to actually be healed is I am safe. I am safe. I am safe at this weight. I am safe at this weight. Oh, I'm not safe at this weight. Whoa, oh my gosh. Okay, let's work with that. What do we need? What do you need? What is actually being needed here? Oh, now I'm safe at this weight. Now I'm safe at my authentic weight. Right? And now I can land in that and I can learn what that feels like to create real boundaries, boundaries that really work for me.
Beautiful. Wow. That's fascinating. So I have so many more questions, but I know that we're coming to time. I wanted to also dig into, looking back on your journey. You've obviously done this for a long time and you have your personal story and you've been working with so many different people. What has surprised you the most about this journey? It could be about clients, it could be about body image, but I'm curious, what has surprised you the most?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that have surprised me. One is how mean people are to themselves and how they think it's okay. They think it's okay. They'll say like, "Well, I'm so hard on myself." And I'm like, "No, no, no. No, no, that's not just something you say flippantly. Why are you hard on yourself?" That we it being mean to ourselves, being critical, talking down to ourselves creates so much stress. And we have so much stress in our lives anyways. We don't need to be the culprit. We don't need to be the one who does that to ourselves. And so that surprises me. And it just surprises my heart when I hear it, right? And then also, how many people have so much shame about going on a diet and then gaining weight back? And like, there's so much information about how diets don't work. of how they don't work. I mean, look it up. It's everywhere. We see it, we hear it, right? And then they go into this shame spiral of like, I can't figure out there's something wrong with me. So and so just lost weight. Well, just wait a little bit, right? If we go on these deep dives into like restriction and dieting and giving ourselves pain, and then we shame ourselves for not being able to keep it up. I mean, that blows my mind.
Mm.
And then on the other end, what surprises me is the amazing impact of healing some of this, healing the food stuff, healing the body image, and how much that actually impacts people's lives. And, we don't have to have an eating disorder in order to say, I deserve to feel better. And so when people really lean in and say, I'm done being obsessed with my body, I'm done being obsessed with food, and to see how their lives have changed, the impact it has on their relationships, the impact it has on the amount of pleasure they bring into their lives, the impacts it has on their parenting and how they show up in life, and just how they experience life. I mean, it is profound. It is profound the impact when people finally find that freedom. And and that's why I do it, because I it's not just about getting your food in check or getting your body to look a certain way. It's about what happens after that. It's about the life, the authentic life and the soul experience that we get to be having.
Mm. What about like the conversation around wanting to be healthy and then also taking it too far? There's probably like a fine balance or fine line between those two. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, I'm curious if you could speak to that.
Yeah, it's so tricky. Ooh, it's tricky. I used to do, oh, I'm just cleansing. Oh, I'm just, being super healthy with my perfect little meal and my perfect little exercise, right? So when we look at it, it's like, what is the intention underneath? And what is the deeper intention? Am I really feeding this food to myself because I love myself? Am I really doing this exercise regime because I love myself and I want to be healthy? Like, you got to be honest with yourself. Are you really doing it because you didn't eat right the day before, or you deserve, or I'm going to restrict. I'm going to do it this time, right? Like, where is it actually coming from? And, sometimes we do need a little bit of will, you know? Will, sometimes we need the will. Sometimes I need the will to go lie down, right? Like, I can keep going. It's like, you lie your butt down there, right? And sometimes people need the will, like, no, you need to move your body. And that's actually a healthy choice. But we all know that fine line. But often we learn the fine line when we jumped past it. Oh, there's my fine line about, an hour ago. And so that's part of the process of learning how to love ourselves. That's part of the process, the learning of like, oh, I see what I'm really doing here, and being really honest with ourselves, like we would a friend. Okay, I want to be honest with you. This isn't really coming from the right intentions. I'm actually really wanting something for myself here.
Mm. Mm. I love that. The intentionality behind the things that we do. That's sometimes can get taken down a path or a road where you're like, well, how did I get here? So I want to talk to you about your call to action. What do you want to say to people who are listening in terms of your main takeaway? What do you want to tell our listeners about their health, wellness, well-being? If you could give them, this one lasting call to action.
The most important thing that I have noticed that makes the biggest impact is how you're speaking to yourself, the things that you're saying to yourself, how you're setting up your day, what you're saying to yourself when you look in the mirror. What are you saying to yourself before you start eating your food? How are you setting yourself up for success or setting yourself up to fail? How are you feeling about yourself and the things that you're saying? Like, really looking at that. And I'm not saying we can go from being in the depths of despair to being like, "Oh my gosh, I just love myself," right? But there is there is that scale that we can start to move up. There is a better thought. There's a nicer thing that we can say to ourselves. So if we're not feeling very good, like, oh my gosh, like, oh, I'm not feeling very good today. Oh my gosh, I look wow. Oh wow, but oh, I feel really bad because I didn't get enough sleep. Right? Like things like that, like leaning into the compassion for self, which also incorporates not comparing yourself to others. That is like the biggest life sucker. And what I would say to that is like, knock it off. Stop doing it. Stop comparing yourself. It is not going to lead you to feel good about yourself at all. And so become aware of when you're doing that and see if you can pull that back and just stay with yourself and give yourself compassion for even doing that, thinking that you need to.
Hmm. Hmm. I love that so much. Okay, and so where can people find you, Marla? Are there any resources you can point folks to in order to learn more about you, how to sign up for coaching, where to find your book?
Yes, everything is at loveyourself.com. You'll find my new book there, Befriend Yourself. You'll also find access to my free course called Breaking the Cycle of Emotional Eating. It's a free course, but like I give a lot of good stuff in there. And then an opportunity for us to sit down and have a conversation if you want. And, I'm really open to connecting with people. So I'm on Instagram. You can always message me there and tell me what's happening, what's going on, what are you challenged, what are your struggles, where are you right now, and how do you need support? We're in this together. We really are, in order to create a new way of being with our bodies and with our food.
Amen. Amen. Amazing, Marla. Thank you so much for your time. This was full of so much wisdom. I learned a lot. And for our audience, thanks for joining in, for listening. In this episode, we learned about how to befriend yourself, body image with Marla Mervis-Hartmann. And you could tune into Gateways to Awakening, where we host one-on-one conversations with leading experts in wellness, well-being, and spirituality. Thanks again. And thank you so much, Marla.
Thank you.